Welcome to HQ Live. I'm Kristina Whitney, a studio educator from Handi Quilter, and with me today
is Adam.
This is Adam Rateliff. He's one of our national educators and a good friend of mine. We met, what was it, 4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago in January.
Wow. So part of the Quilt Your Desire Club,
right?
Inspiration Squad.
Quilt Your Desire Inspiration Squad, QID.
Yes. So we were both chosen to come to Handi Quilter and do some training, be part of the marketing team. And Adam, I know for you, it's changed your life, it's changed my life. Look at us now.
Only for the better. Yes. So I like to say that I was part of a model search. And
for the eye candy, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it totally changed my life. I was an accountant before, and now I long arm quilt, and I teach. Look at that. But yeah, it's not only that part, but meeting all the people. You know, the 12 others, or I guess 11 others that were there.
Oh, we had Jace too, so we had 12.
Yeah, the 12 others that you know, we've all stayed in contact and became friends. I have a fabulous quilt because of it, so that's always a great thing.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about the round robin? Explain to our audience what we did, and then I want you to show them your fantastic quilt.
Okay. So one of the Quilt Your Desire Squad members decided, hey, what do we think about doing a round robin? There were 12 of us. We split it up into Group A and Group B. Obviously, I was Group A, you know.
I was Group B.
It was in alphabetical order. But we did a round robin quilt. So they had 6 rounds. I by far think I have the most fabulous quilt that I got back. But I think they all turned out really spectacular.
I do love yours, but I will argue mine's better.
I do like yours too. I'm joking, I don't. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I'm going to tell everybody in my group.
No, but I think it's, well, what are we here to talk about today?
Your quilting style.
My quilting style.
Yes.
I call it the confetti of quilting.
Ooh, I like that.
I think you are too,
yes.
because I use all different types of applications when I quilt. I always use a ruler, because I use a ruler to, even edge to edge, I use a ruler to base down my sides, to help me base down my sides. But I'm big into letting Pro Stitcher work for you, so I do a lot of Pro Stitcher stuff, or stencils, and I love free motion. I always say that Pro Stitcher gets things done, but free motion fills my soul.
Yeah.
So, but I think you're the same. You use Pro Stitcher in ways that other people might not think, because a lot of people see that machine, or see the Pro Stitcher or the robotics and think, oh, that's edge-to-edge quilting. Yeah. And like, it's so much more. It's so much more.
So Adam, why don't you show us your round robin quilt, since we were talking about that, and show us how you used Pro Stitcher. How did you make that work for you? And then what free motion you did on it.
Okay.
And you can stand up and walk around.
Okay.
I'll give you permission.
Yay!
And I'll even move out of the way for you. We'll social distance.
Hey, it's Kim Sandberg. I'm just here to give you a quick reminder. We're changing when we're going to be broadcasting the HQ Live starting in July of this year, 2021. It's still going to be the second week of the month, but it's going to be taking place on Tuesday at noon. That's 12 p.m. Mountain Time. So be sure to mark your calendars for the second Tuesday in July at noon Mountain Time for the next episode of HQ Live. We'll see you then.
All right, so this is my round robin quilt. I call it Carpal Tunnel, because there's all of these really thin matchsticks quilting, and my hand hurt really bad at the end of it, because this quilt is, I think it's 100 by 100, so it's a huge quilt. But it hung for a while I decided, like, how can I take pieces of this and really accentuate that quilting. On this one, I used Pro Stitcher when I was stitching these flying geese, and you'll see flying geese kind of throughout the quilt, because I love flying geese. So Helen K, thank you so much for my flying geese border, and Angie, thank you for my curved flying geese. But I was able to digitize just this one goose design, and then use Pro Stitcher, and really I just opened up a bunch of designs, placed them where I wanted, because I had digitized them where they had a start in the back and the stop at the point. So I was able to stitch them out in one pass. And you'll see that they kind of flow through the negative space in that, I'm going to call this border 3 or row 3. And then I use those same geese in the colored circles. So these paper piece circles, and you can kind of see them just stitched out. Lots of matchsticks quilting. I think in this one, because of you, Kristina, I used monopoly thread. I think this is the first time I really took advantage of that monopoly, and anything that was stitched in a color was stitched with that monopoly, and then anything that is stitched in the negative space, I used my favorite thread, Omni. But yeah, it came out spectacular. It was spectacular before I quilted it. I really love how the quilting turned out. Ooh, there's a thread. Like in the border, I was able to kind of mimic these little black squares in the negative space of that border. And then I pulled out this herringbone pattern, and this was actually what determined how the angle of my lines were going to go. So at the top and the bottom, the lines kind of go northwest to southeast. Is that right? And
Diagonally.
then diagonally this way. And then on the sides, it goes this way. But there's no top or bottom, so it just depends on where you kind of rotate it. But really, I sent this piece out. I sent some backing out, said do whatever you want, and I got this fabulous quilt back. So for those of you who worked on it, thank you so much. You are dear to me, and I love this baby. I just put the facing on last night because I don't like doing it. I'm not a fan of doing binding.
Excellent. I love it.
So that's carpal tunnel.
Okay. I'll scoot back over and let you have your seat.
Thank you, thank you.
So I love that example and how you utilize all the different tools.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about some of your other quilts. I love that you brought so many
I
quilts
brought a
to
few.
share.
You know, I quilt for other people, so most of the time I'm doing all these fun things. They're on other people's quilts, and so I'm going through and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to bring? This was my favorite quilt before I got the one on the wall. This is Barnum, and you can see he's huge. He's a huge elephant. But you can see how I digitized the letters down in the front, and it actually has a star and says Barnum. And then again, I just took rulers and matchstick quilted around those letters to have those letters really pop. Here you can see these half square triangles that are stitched into the design. I used Pro Stitcher to stitch a grid, and then I just went in with a ruler, cut those squares in half, matchstick quilted in those in every other piece, and then I have these half square triangle blocks that I didn't have to worry about trying to get really straight because Pro Stitcher was going to do that for me. And then sometimes I just use a Pro Stitcher design. So this is really a confetti of quilting because there's a ton of designs going on around the background. Can we flip this forward?
Yes.
And again, it's things that people don't necessarily think about. I do love the back because you can see all that stitching.
Hold that up a little.
So over here, I took it was one of the crosshatch designs. I stretched it out so it turned into a diamond crosshatch. And again, I just went in and with a ruler and some matchsticks and was able to make that design look totally different by just kind of thinking outside the box and like, what can I add with free motion to change how this is really going to look?
Yeah, I'm going to show them the back if you don't mind.
Do we care if it's upside down?
I don't care. I was just going to show them how you can see, like on these letters, you can see where it was stitched out with the Pro Stitcher and then you went back in.
Mm-hmm.
You can see all the white stitching that you did.
Yeah, it's, again, thinking outside the box. What can Pro Stitcher do for me to make my life easier? And then what do I get to do and to add more fun and more flair?
Yeah.
You will notice that I matched the color of the thread to the top. So anything that wasn't quite perfect, you can't tell.
Yeah.
I always do that. It's my way to hide things.
And
So.
I kind of like how you have the white on the back because you want to match your top thread
Oh,
with
right.
your bobbin thread. But it's almost like a reversible quilt.
Yeah, definitely. And That's the way I quilt. It's always like I get a second, a little surprise.
Yes. Hopefully it's a good surprise.
Yeah,
And your tension wasn't off.
Oh gosh, that or yeah, exactly. I have the first quilt that I used ruler work for, and I always take it to class because I can show you. I can turn it around and say, look, this is where I started, and this is where I am now, because none of the lines matched up. There was no overstitching on that quilt. It's funny to look at. On the front, I matched threads. It looked perfect, but on the back, it was a whole nother story.
It's nice to see where we've come from.
Oh yeah.
We didn't automatically become good quilters. I don't want to say perfect or excellent quilters because we're still progressing.
I'm still not that.
But we are progressing.
The secret is, let me tell them the secret.
Oh wait, is that the tip for the end? Or is this a different secret?
Oh, it is the tip. I'll tell you the tip.
You can tell the tip now.
The secret
we'll
is,
reiterate it later.
The secret is, it's just quilting. At the end of the day, it is just quilting. You need to be having fun. If you are quilting and you're stressed and it has to be perfect and you're just a ball of like a knot because you just can't even think, if this isn't perfect, what do I do? Step back, shake it out, sing your favorite song, and get back on that machine and have fun. And it really changes the way you quilt, because even, like, let's say, what's my favorite? Swirls. I love quilting swirls. But if I'm tense, those swirls don't swirl. They kind of, like, square off. I don't know. They're not very good. So I'll turn the radio up. I'll sing some Broadway songs. I'll dance with my dog, have some chocolate. That tool tray, too, is the perfect place to keep your chocolate while you're quilting. And then I get back on and just go for it and have a good time.
Yeah, sometimes if I kind of get in a funk, I will actually take that quilt off of my machine because, the Velcros are
right.
the Velcros. The leaders are
The
Velcro.
leaders.
So I'll just take that off and put something fun on and just release that tension, just play, have a little therapy session, and then I can get back to work on the other one.
That's funny that you say that. I have 2 quilts that I had loaded that are rolled up in their leaders under my machine right now because I'm like, when am I going to get time to do that? I'd rather do something else.
I've got a few.
So, again, keeping it kind of on the same mind. So, I do want to say, anything that I do with Pro Stitcher, you can do for the most part, you can do if you don't have a Pro Stitcher. Maybe on Barnum, where I had it stitch that grid out for me. If I had a grid stencil, I could just stencil those lines and use that. The stencil is going to help me keep those lines a little straighter and give me a gauge to go off, especially if I'm using rulers.
Yes.
This is something that I just made recently. I call this the holiday mandala. This is a design that I purchased from Quiltable. So it's a new digitizing website where you can purchase designs. This is called the elaborate half mandala. And what I did is I had Pro Stitcher stitch it out. So I have the infinity, I have the big guy. So I was able to stitch out half of this in my throat and then advance it and flip that design, stitch the other half. And then I just went in with some gold metallic thread. Now I am a thread junkie. Are you also a thread junkie?
You might be a little bit more than I am, but I think I'm up there.
I'm crazy about thread. If it's gonna make anything look pretty, I'm gonna do it. So this is stitched with all metallic thread, and this is a good example of you have to have fun. So on the outside border, I was stitching a stipple, and my idea was like, oh, I'm gonna do this beautiful stipple throughout the design. Well, you can see that it gets really dense towards the center because I wasn't having fun anymore trying to do that stipple. So I said, okay, now I'm gonna scribble. And you can do that because you're the quilter. Don't let anyone tell you what you have to do. If you're doing it and you're having success, you keep doing it just like that. But yeah, as soon as I got into the inside, I'm like, that stipple, it might be a little stressful. So I just started scribbling with that gold thread, and it really just kind of made this pop.
Yes, I was going to say that same thing.
And I've made 2 of these. This is I call it the holiday one. I also made one in blue, and I use bottom line thread. So I use 7 different colors of bottom line, and it's actually the mirror image of this. So anything that you see popped up on the top here is the opposite on the blue one. So the center on the blue one I stitched in, so all of these were stitched in a different color, and it really was looked cool because that bottom line thread, you can't see, like, you don't see the thread, you just kind of see
The shape, the texture.
not even the texture. what's like the color, but not like a shade.
Okay.
It just kind of shades it just a little bit different. So you see that like the colored rounds as it went through.
So kind of similar, like this is a little not as dense with the quilting.
Correct.
The color isn't quite as intense on this part as it is just the color here.
Yeah, so it
your
would be more
color
kind of
changed.
colored up at the top as it went down. Yeah, but
Excellent.
Again, anything that Pro Stitcher can do for me to make me feel successful is a good day in my book. But you can also get a stencil, print it out.
Yep. So question for you.
Okay.
When you did the Pro Stitcher on this part, just to get the outline of the design, did you use the metallic thread? I think I'm seeing
I did
a
not.
different thread.
I stitched out the outline in Omni. Omni is by far my favorite thread for the long arm. It's so forgiving and has 200 colors. I know, because I have to find a place to store them all. But
So what made you decide to use that thread instead of the metallic? What was your thought process?
my thought process was, if I'm going to come in and color this area, so let's kind of look out in the outside. If I'm going to color this and I'm not quite perfect, if I'm matching the thread color to the fabric, if I don't get quite perfect with my colors, then it's still going to look okay. And I can see a few places. I mean, I'm a lot closer than the camera, but I can see a few places where I got close to that stitch line, but not right on it, and it still was able to give me the pop and the look I was going for without stressing about all those lines looking perfect.
So that's a great tip for our viewers. Yeah, because I mean, even if you went over the line, you wouldn't really notice.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. I love it. This is beautiful.
Thank you.
I might have to do one of these.
And I
wish you
bound it.
brought the blue one too.
And I bound it.
I
And this is a hard one to bind
should
because it's
I
an octagon.
critique your skill?
Don't. No, you shouldn't. But let me tell you, I bound it last week while I was teaching. I bound it in my hotel room. I get a lot of binding done in hotel rooms.
And since you mentioned that, you travel a lot.
I do.
And you teach across the country. You do videos from home. You're known for your turtle toes.
My turtle toes travel.
So tell us a little bit about how people can follow you.
All right, so I'm everywhere. You can't get rid of me. It's Adam So Fun, and that's SEW, and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.com, Gmail.
Do you Twitter?
I don't Twitter.
I don't either.
I don't. But I am on everywhere else. And I always tell people, you know, I love my YouTube channel. I kind of have been going towards getting videos out and doing fun things. There's a video on me stitching this, and I have to give myself an A+ for editing, because at the end I was able to edit it so the end of the song ended when I cut my threads, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. Because I'm not a video editor. Even when I teach, you know, people are like, oh, my machine does this. I'm like, I can stitch with them. I'm not a tech. But luckily, when you get a Handi Quilter, the shops have techs for you to ask. Yes. They're always your first person to run to. Yeah. But yeah, so it's nice to be able to get out and see people again. Last year was a little hard. Let's not talk about it. Yeah. But I did get a lot of stitching done, so that's fine. Not binding, but quilting I did.
See, I thought that I would get a lot more accomplished, but I think that I spent more time here at Handi Quilter putting out videos and stuff for everybody than at home quilting.
Well, I was
a little jealous.
It was very nice with all the videos you all put out, because it felt like I was here. You know, I felt like I still had a friend. So it's just
how things
interactions. You just have to have those interactions.
Yep.
So
that is beautiful.
Thank you.
Can we see the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, so this is the next one. It doesn't have a name. What do we want? You can name it.
Oh.
I was going to think about that. I always text my friend.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
There you go. I always text my friend. I'm like, here's my quilt. Can you name it? She's like, well, let me ask my son.
I'm just joking.
They're very good. But I threw this together because I needed something to bring. You can see swirls. They are my go-to filler design.
Should we see if you were having a good day or if you were tense?
This was a good day. This was a good day because I had spent the day frantic getting things done, but also when I spend the day like creating, it's always a good day. But this, I knew kind of in my head, because I kind of designed this for the quilting, that I was going to do this weird diamond thing. And I had some variegated fabric that I was able just to kind of cut the piece that or grab my scraps that I had and get all the diamonds out of it. And then when it was done, I went in and I digitized the diamond shape.
Okay.
And that's how I used the Pro Stitcher to help me stitch this out. Again, if you don't have Pro Stitcher, I mean, you can make a shape, make a stencil, and then put that on here. The cool thing about this quilt, it glows under a black light, because I needed to draw lines, but like if you're using a white fabric or a lighter fabric, you can't see those lines. And my favorite, those HQ iron-off pencils are amazing. My favorite thing. And I'm over there like, and I just couldn't see that line. It was just too light. So I pulled my fluorescent Taylor's pencil out, and I'll have to, I think I took a picture. I'll have to show you later. But it has a grid. So I drew a grid just with my regular, cutting ruler before I loaded it up. And I was able to use my Pro Stitcher to place the start point of each diamond, and then just have the Pro Stitcher stitch it for me.
And that's a great technique for our viewers to, first of all, know that you can mark your quilt.
Oh, yeah.
And you can mark it ahead of time before you load it. If you're using a pounce, probably not before you load it, because it'll probably get all rubbed off.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, use those tools that are available.
Yeah, I have an array of marking utensils dependent on what I'm trying to mark and how I need it. If it's a stencil, I'm definitely going to be using pounce because it is a stencil. I don't know if you've done this yet, but I do a lot of stuff with Pro Stitcher Designer. I get it in play, and I'll make stencils from Pro Stitcher Designer, because sometimes, it's great to have Pro Stitcher do it, but sometimes I just want to do it. Like I said, free motion fills my soul. So I will have the Pro Stitcher, or the Designer, I'll print it out, stitch it on my domestic machine, and now I have my own created stencil that I can go in and put in places.
So just really briefly, like in one sentence or two sentences, what's Pro Stitcher Designer?
Pro Stitcher Designer is a digitizing software that allows you to digitize long arm designs for all formats.
You're the best.
It's and if you add catalog, you can search all of those digitized designs along with your embroidery designs.
And purchase designs.
And purchase
you didn't
designs.
actually
Oh my
design
gosh.
yourself. And
Yes, it's
good stuff.
That catalog has changed my life, because I knew I had designs, but I didn't want to go through 400 files.
Yes.
So now I just type balloon, find them. But yeah, so that's Pro Stitcher Designer. Come back, maybe, I don't know. I might be doing a video on it. Sorry, we like to have fun here at Handi Quilter. I'm wearing my chili shirt. I don't know if you can see it, because I'm here to spice things up.
And I tried to get him to make me a scarf to wear to match, and failed
But
me.
I didn't make this.
Well, true.
I make quilts, not garments. Back to my quilt.
Okay,
No, I just
let's get back on topic here.
So I did set up a workspace in Pro Stitcher. So let's jump over to my computer, and I'll kind of show you how I did this. It won't be exactly the same, because again, I drew that grid on here and I was able to place stuff, but I'll show you how I had the kind of the layout and then where I could put those designs. All right, so here we are. We are in Pro Stitcher Simulator, and how do I know that? Because my crosshairs are green. Because what? Green crosshairs mean you're in Simulator, purple crosshairs mean you're in free motion, and orange crosshairs mean you are in Pro Stitcher mode. And this is just kind of a mock-up of this quilt design. So let's pretend, we have to use our imagination here, that this is the quilt. I can go up to my file, design, open. I have the file already saved, so I'm just going to open Diamond Live. Oh no, never mind, that one's not the correct one. Let me see.
Maybe we need to get catalog out and find the right one.
I have to remember how I saved it. Oh no, that was the right one. So, but yes, you do have to remember the name if you're going to do that. So here's my, my diamond design that matches the diamonds on my quilt.
Okay, so just real quick, on your screen, the diamonds that are already in there represent the darker purple ones on your quilt, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And anything in the larger square, so I will select anything in this area is represents the quilt on the frame.
Perfect.
And I had digitized the same diamond design. And again, remember, I had those grids drawn. So they were all drawn diagonally through here. And I was able to pull my design and line up a diamond into that grid. So maybe there's a diamond there. And I can edit and duplicate. So edit in your files, duplicate in your ribbon. Here's another diamond. And I could drop this one here. And that's how I did this. I just duplicated those designs, dropped them in the grid that was created, that I had drawn on, and glowed in the dark, which is also fun if you ever stitch in the dark. That's the black lights. I love that HQ black light because it gives you such a wide range. But so then I would set them up, select my designs, not those ones, but this. Let's see if I can click on it. So here's a quick tip in Pro Stitcher. I'm trying to select this design, but I can't get to it because I have the bigger design, which represents the quilt. If I deselect everything and I come over to my workspace tab, you can select those designs from your workspace tab over in your sidebar, which is the right side of Pro Stitcher. So down at the bottom left, I'm going to click multi-select, and then I'm going to select those 3 diamonds I placed from my sidebar, and then I'll turn multi-select off. And now I can have Pro Stitcher stitch those 3 diamonds. And so this is it. I kind of decided where those diamonds lived. I call this the Bob Ross method of quilting. A little diamond lives here, and a little diamond lives there. And then have Pro Stitcher stitch it. And then I just went in with my swirl day and went for it.
So this is amazing. I love how you do this. I want to know your thought process, though. I want to get into your brain. How did you determine where you wanted to put these diamonds? Any thought process, or was it just totally random?
Yes and no. Yes to all.
The answer to everything, maybe.
So when I thought about this, because again, I made this quilt to kind of show off how my brain works. I knew that I wanted a few rows to go diagonally the opposite way and get those negative kind of spaced diamonds. When I originally did it, I didn't know I was going to put this row in there. And I was looking at it as I was quilting saying, oh, do I need a little bit more? Do I want a little bit more? I love how these 4 down here interact with each other. So that's when I decided, okay, you know what? Let's go in and add 1 more row. And you can see, maybe you can't. I thought I cut one in half. Is it? Oh, it's up there. So
this one, these are cut off just a little bit.
These actually stitched out. They're just cut off because of my binding. Poor planning. But the one in the front, that was the edge of the quilt. So I was able to place that one, pop an area around it really easily, and crop that one off so it didn't actually stitch onto my leaders.
Were you that close to your leaders?
I get very close to my leaders. If I can, because
we recommend having extra backing just so that you don't have issues. But
I had about a 1/2 inch.
Sometimes we have to do what we can.
I get my plumb line very close. I want that extra fabric on the back. But yeah, so I was able to just place them, and like I said, I wasn't free motion quilting all of the stuff until I had all my diamonds placed. Okay. So I was able to quilt it, and I actually quilted sideways so I could get almost the whole thing in my frame. Or I actually think the whole thing fit in my throat. So I was able to kind of step back, look at it. When I got to the diamonds, I did grab a ruler and just stitch around those. But that didn't happen until I started the free motion quilting, because I didn't have to stitch them down at first. Usually if I'm doing something bigger, I'm going to go in and base stitch around things to help hold everything in place. But in this one, it wasn't so big, so it wasn't a super big issue for me.
Okay. Another question for you. Do you change your foot?
It depends. I change my foot all the time when I need to get the right foot for the right application.
Okay.
In this case, I believe the Surefoot was probably on the whole time. The Surefoot is by far my favorite foot because I use it, I can free motion with it. Now, there is a little caveat to that. Some people find the Surefoot a little too tall to see still, as if they're free motion quilting, but they're so easy to change those feet in and out. I mean, you're just screwing out, putting the new one on. So this one did have the Surefoot. Again, I use the Surefoot on all the quilts because I'm using the Versa tool to help me stitch down the sides of my quilt. Okay. And then I'm trying to think what other one. Most of my stuff has a lot of ruler work with the Pro Stitcher, so the Surefoot is almost lives on my machine.
I'm guessing with your Christmas one that you did,
Oh,
that
the
you might have
microfoot.
used the microfoot.
Definitely the microfoot on the Christmas one. If I'm doing edge to edge, it's always the glide foot because then I don't have to think about anything. Not think. I don't have to worry about anything. That's the big thing.
So with your confetti quilting, like we've said before, I kind of am a confetti quilter as well. But I like people to know that they can change the foot.
Oh yeah.
In one quilt, you're not stuck using one tool. You're not stuck using one foot.
Right.
Mix things up.
Have
fun.
You know, that's it. Have fun. When I teach, I make everybody change the foot. I'm just like, foot time, foot change. Let's go. Thread change. I want everybody to know, like, you can use all the threads out there. You can use. I did on my YouTube channel. I did a thread sample. I stitched with 16 different threads. I put 2 threads that were different threads through the needle at once.
I have a challenge for you.
Oh gosh, now I'm nervous.
You should be. Okay, glitter thread and metallic thread together in the same needle. That's your challenge. You need to come up with something with that and show me.
I've done it, but I will definitely do that.
Okay. And then maybe we'll have you back so we can talk about threads.
People just don't think they can do it.
Yeah.
It's just as long as you have that correct needle, then your thread choice always works out.
Yeah, you just need to work on tension.
Yeah, get
Play
used to
with
tension.
it, get comfortable.
Turn that knob, or in my case, hit the button. I do love the Infinity. I do. I have my presets.
I moved from an Avante to a Forte, and my Avante didn't have the numbers on the screen. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever once looked at my screen to see what the number was. I just go by feel and turning the knob.
Isn't it interesting though? Because at home you can go by feel, but when you get into like a classroom and you're like, oh, this feels right, it's never right, because you know your machine. You don't know all the machines.
Oh, I'm just better than that.
Okay, then
I'm just
find it.
kidding.
I mean, I can always tension a machine, but I'm so used to being at home and just kind of pulling that thread and saying, "Yep, your tension's good."
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever on the same machine here at work. We've got like probably 25 different machines in the studio. So, yeah, somebody asked me the other day. They're like, "Which machine were you doing the ruler work on?" I'm like,
all of them. Yes
that
to all.
one, that one, that one. Which day are you talking? So,
yes to all.
We mix things up. So anything else you want to talk about on this one? Oh, sorry, I just noticed something. Look at your binding.
I always bind my quilts with a different color on the bottom right.
Have a peek. I hadn't noticed that before.
Oh, they have it on the screen.
I love it.
I don't know why. I started doing that. I think Barnum, same way.
Now I'm going to have to go back and look at all your quilts.
Now, let me tell you.
What about the Christmas one?
No,
there's not a bottom
because
right.
there's no bottom right, and I was just trying to get it done in a hotel room in Fresno, California. Let's see, and I've become a really big fan of facing because you don't have to miter corners. Just fold it back and sew. So if they're faced, they're not. They're also not. But when anything I bind.
Oh, that's really cool.
So even when I was doing stuff for my family visited this summer. I'm in Cleveland and they are in California. And while they were there, I had bought jelly rolls because I'm like, ooh, everyone can make a jelly roll race. I have 3 nieces. And I think we made, 3, 4, 5, 6. We made 6 quilts that week. They made 6 quilts that week. I quilted them, but I made them set up all their designs and do Pro Stitcher. A few of them were like, oh, I don't want to finish this. And I said, okay, I'll finish it. And as much as I do not like binding, I did bind all of those quilts that same week. So it was nice because everybody went home with a quilt. So the power of having multiple machines.
Another great power is to have a coworker that likes to bind.
Oh, true.
Yes. We've got one here that's amazing. I was going to see if you put a label on that corner with the different binding.
I didn't put, no, remember, it doesn't have a name yet, so it doesn't have a label.
Okay. I was just wondering if
I
that
just finished
signified.
I finished it a week ago, and then I left the next morning, so.
I love it.
It's lucky it has a binding on it all.
I've got many without bindings. Okay.
I need a name. This one is also not named.
Oh,
We can call it PS Star. because that's what I named the design. Again, so
Let's get a little more creative than that.
the Star Tur ruler quilt. I'm so dumb.
We're digressing here.
I'm just so
Let's
dumb.
get back to our quilting.
So again, I designed this quilt for something to bring. So I knew what I wanted out of the quilting. So in this case, I did 2 stars. I don't even know what the stars are called. I'm so bad with my quilt blocks. Because I just
totally
call
blanking
everything an
too.
Ohio star, and I know they're not right, but I'm in Ohio now, so
We'll stick with star.
So this is the PS star. So I made these 2 blocks. I love making flying geese, so it was nice because I could just make some flying geese blocks, which go really quick for me. And then I knew I was going to do some ruler work. Now, if you follow me on social media, you would have seen a little corner photo of this. And it was captioned something like, "Why do I always think 1/4-inch lines are the way to go?" Because they look so great, but they take so long. So, I have to cough. One moment, please. I'm going to grab some water.
No problem. I'm just going to check out your fun little binding down in that corner.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, continue.
So I started with those 1/4-inch lines down here. And about 7 of them in, I thought, okay, we're not going to do that anymore.
Wait, let's go back.
Okay.
You did the 1/4-inch lines first, or did you stitch out the star?
Oh, I stitched out the star first. So how this one, so my thought process.
Yes.
I guess.
Walk
thought
us through
process.
from the beginning.
I made these 2 blocks, and I knew I wanted to do something in the negative space. And I had put it together. It was on my design wall. And while it was on my design wall, I thought, it needs a border. So I added this extra border strip. And it was actually interesting because I looked at it after it was quilted and was like, I don't know if I like that extra border strip anymore. So I almost cut it off because, again, my quilt, I get to do what I want. But it was already quilted. I decided to leave it and just pop that border on. So when I loaded it, I knew I was going to stitch the ditch around the colored squares, and I knew I was going to somehow have Pro Stitcher stitch this design out. So I went into Pro Stitcher Designer, I digitized the design, and that's where my brain starts going. The original plan was to kind of shrink this and have it coming off the quilt or a different placement. Mm-hmm. So what is great is I could open the design 4 times and put these 2 where they represent on the quilt.
Yeah.
And then do different layouts with my negative space stars until I liked it. And I wasn't a fan of them kind of hovering off and coming in. I do a lot of quilting like that, and I do a lot of using Designer or Pro Stitcher to mimic a shape. So
I call it ghost quilting.
Ghost quilting, yes.
Yeah,
and making
shapes.
those ghost blocks.
Yeah.
That is where I really come into my own with Designer because ghost blocks are very easy to make. I mean, click, 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 ding, 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 and then it's done.
Supposed to tell people this was really hard.
It's not. That's the point. It's not because I have the correct tools to help me out. I also knew that I wanted to do something thread fun, so I knew I was going to stitch the negative shapes in a color. Oh, yeah. So I got to go out and this happens to be Magnifico. So I was able to kind of pull out my different oranges and different blues and see which ones I liked better. So I decided after kind of doing some layouts that I wanted all the stars to be the same size. And again, one of the features I love about Pro Stitcher is I could open this design, tell it was a 10-inch block, and then just put my needle right here and say top right or bottom right, and it moves the design for me. If you're a perfect piecer, then those would have lined up perfectly. I'm not. Nudged it. I nudge it all.
Always.
So
even if you did piece perfectly, it might not have been loaded perfectly straight on your frame. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my joke is that the only straight edge on any of my quilts is the one that goes up next to my plumb line, because I have an edge to put it on. But
it's a good start.
At the end of the day, it's just quilting. Does it really matter?
So Adam, this is fantastic. I love how you stitched out the ghost shapes. I love how you auditioned it in Pro Stitcher to see where you wanted to place them. Can you show us how you actually stitched this? And
I would
how
love
you do
to.
like the extra little details afterwards?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I do, before I jump over there, I do want to mention, so remember I was talking about those 1/4" lines.
Oh, yeah.
When I decided I didn't want to do 1/4" lines over the whole thing, I turned these ones into 3/4" lines. So, and that gave me a little bit of, it changed those blocks. I had this stitch out, had my 1/4" lines. The piece blocks have those 3/4" lines. So it was easy to kind of separate the 4 blocks out and kind of give them new dimensions.
Perfect. I
So.
love it.
All right.
Okay, let's see what you're going to stitch.
All right, so on this one, again, I stitched this design out just like I did on that yellow quilt, on the PS Star quilt, we're gonna call it. But instead of doing straight lines, I just did a swirl fill. I did, and the difference is, it just changes, or it changes the whole look because it's not those straight lines, it's not as angular, it kind of makes it a little more fun, and again, I love swirls. But you'll also notice that there's places that I went outside the lines, and guess what? I just kept going. It doesn't matter if you're perfect, you're having fun, remember that. So I'm gonna slide over to the other one I stitched out. Again, same block, just different application. So I'm gonna show you how I did those straight line quilting, or how I did the straight line quilting. And let's see, I'm gonna pop it up into my corner, bring up my bobbin, use my favorite function of these machines, just one of my favorite functions of the machines. I use my tie-off stitch, and I can stitch, oh, I'm gonna change my settings. When I stitch in, use ruler work, I stitch with my crew set at 25, because if I don't see that needle moving, I think I stopped the machine. So I have my ruler foot here, or my sure foot. I do have my sure foot on. I have my ruler base, because I wanna be, make sure that I'm being as safe as I can be. And when I'm using rulers with the Surefoot, I'm sure being safe. And I have my HQ skinny ruler. I'm using the edge of my foot as my 1/4" guide, and eyeballing the edge of my foot next to my stitch line. And I can come in with my HQ skinny ruler. I'm gonna line that up. And you can see that this block is gonna be longer than my ruler. So I'm gonna stitch, stop my machine, slide my ruler down, and then continue. So, you'll notice the machine is stopped, and I move my ruler. It's really important that when you're using rulers that you are practicing safe practices, like the needle stopped when I move my machine, or when I move my ruler. We're also not trying to win any races. We're trying to be as precise as possible. Again, I matched my threads, so right here my stitching wasn't quite perfect, but you wouldn't have been able to see that. You can see it here because I'm using lime green on black. So now I'm going back up. Also, when I'm doing this, I try to be as precise as I can, but my lines are nowhere near straight. I can look at it, I can kind of point it out. If they get off a little bit, I'm okay with that. I'm doing so many lines, nobody's gonna say, ooh, those lines are off a little bit when you got to the 4th and the 5th one. They're not, and if they do say that, I'm not their friend. So I would just continue. I'll do one more because I want to show you how I can kind of work around these other shapes. So when I get to a point like this, I need to move around the corner of that shape so I can do the interior, and that's when I'm going to move my ruler, help me line up, get everything nice and straight. And I love using the edge of that foot to help me gauge that 1/4". And in this case, I would fill up this area and then continue either on the top or bottom. Whatever way is going to be, whatever way is going to help me end in the spot I needed to. So when I made this quilt, I needed to end up in that top left corner, or the top right corner, so I could get to that next block. So I worked my way around the bottom, came up, stitched over, and then was able to stitch right across that top line and start that next block. So that's how to make 1/4-inch lines. And remember, not too much pressure on the ruler. Really, you should have some handy grip on the back of these rulers to help you hold them in place. And just stitch with rulers, have fun, love it as much as I do. So then we can be friends on Facebook.
So Adam, I'm so glad that you've joined us and you've shared all these tips and all these ideas and this enthusiasm. That's what I love the most. Yes.
My dorkiness.
We work well together. So thank you for watching HQ Live. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to join us next month for another great HQ Live. Have fun quilting.
Bye, everyone.